Okay, good morning. Thank you. So let's get the scary part out of the way. You have to do homework. I know this because I come from professional training backgrounds as well. The scary part is you've now got to start doing homework again after college. But let me also tell you, that's a nice part. So that's when you're going to meet others who are also doing homework, saying that how did you do this assignment? How did this work? Etc. Make new friends, and you'll be on your way. So doing a master's degree, once you thought you were done with college, it's a new adventure. Welcome to it. And I think at the end of it, what's going to happen is after you've done your work and you've written your papers and like this, and if you will do that, it's not just that your resume will be better. It's that you yourself will fundamentally be a scientific person. And I think congratulations on being able to do this. Every once in a while, I think of trying to get myself another degree and then realize I don't have the energy for it. So you're on your path. I am going to talk, as promised, about AI, which is a strange subject for me to talk about because my background is in statistics, mathematics, and economics. So I actually know very little about it. But I am a consumer of it. It's, greatness is thrust on people, and AI is thrust on people as well. So I'm very much a consumer of AI. So I'm going to talk about it more from the perspective of someone who uses it. My home is data. That is why, for purely selfish reasons, this diagram has data in the middle. Not because data is very important and everyone has to know about data. No, not saying that. And people, when they see a picture like this, they say, so should I really be in the middle? I say that we all want to be all-rounders. We all the best cricketers in India. Well, what's the name that first comes to mind? Kohli, right? Kohli's there as what? Kohli's there as a batsman. He's a good fielder as well, but he can't bowl much, but he does. Michael Dhoni had opinions on that. But you won't say that Kohli has to do everything in order to be very, very good in his profession. So in the same way, I mean, all parts of this picture, whether you're coming from an IT background and beginning to think of this kind of world as being a technology discipline on networking or on programming, and that's your skill, or whether you're thinking of this from a management perspective, whether your perspective is to be able to understand how businesses work, how they make money, how they save money, or you're thinking of it from the part that I think many of you don't want to think of it, which is doing the math and doing the modeling and all of that. Right, that only very strange subspecies of humans like I do. But that's going to be a part of your journey. Wherever you are, you're going to converge in different places into this scope. Some of you are in analytics, so think about how we will leverage data or other technologies in order to help companies. Some of you will think about things like AI and ML, which is coming from a combination of things technical and things mathematical. Some of you will think of the digital world, the world of cybersecurity, the world of cloud. In other words, making sure that digital technologies have the right kind of impact and do help organizations grow. And you'll hear a lot about cybersecurity today. So that, coupled by the fact that I know very little about it myself, I won't talk about it. But the point of this is to say that you are on a journey that has many entry and exit points. And you, I suspect, looking at you and broadly looking at the color of your hair, I mean, Dr. Sim and me accepted, have many of these journeys ahead of you. It's not as if you're going to be committed to this, you're going to move around. Like I said, when I was at MIT was shutting down its AI labs. They had an AI lab in the Laboratory of Computer Science, and the AI lab merged with the Computer Science lab, saying that there's no future in AI. And then look where we are now with respect to data and all of this. And look where we're going now. So when I first started teaching AI, to some extent, they said, oh, it was about knowledge systems, it was about robotics and things of that sort. And then deep learning came and they said, no one learns knowledge systems anymore. No self-respecting AI class will teach autonomous agents. That is not what AI is. AI is convolution neural networks and all of that, etc. Very soon, these things will become historical as well. And it's all going to be about catching it. It's all going to be about, So things begin in the dashboard, then move under the hood, and then you don't know much about it. I can't change the wheel of a car now. I used to. So that technology is gone. It's become specialist. So you are on that journey. And you will do many particular things on that journey in time. If you are an AI person now, that doesn't mean you'll be an AI person later. You may say, AI is very good, but it's dangerous. Let's worry about security now. Let's worry about making sure that people use this all very safe. And then you're in a whole different space altogether. So it's as I said, the world is mixing up in a certain direction. And some of these directions are, I think, slightly surprising. This is not AI. In fact, the people who talk about this are a little resilient to what AI is supposed to be. And so this is perhaps addressed more to people who are in the business analytics space. I'm going to talk about 3 examples. This is the first of them. This is solving a problem. And the solution to such problems win you Nobel Prizes. But the problem that we're talking about here is the problem of figuring out how to teach children. What works and what doesn't work. And it's a problem for adults as well, but we're going to talk just about children. And in particular, the economists, 𝗂𝗶𝘀𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗵 and many others from MIT, they started asking questions like saying that should we teach at the right level? You can't read very well. The data is from Haryana and Uttar Pradesh. How do we train teachers themselves? Do we give them material? Do we give them coaching? Do we do all of these things? Now, how do you begin to answer such a question? How would you do it? Let me just ask this a quick question. So the question is it worthwhile investing a lot of money, a fair amount of money, training teachers, taking them through camps? Will it make a difference? How will you answer this question? You're going to be data professionals. What's a quick answer to this? How would you know? You're going to go to the government and you're going to say, let's invest a few crores. The government is going to come back and say, why? Everything's working. Problem name. You're going to say, maybe not. But how would you answer the question? What would you like to do?
Oh, what's with two? Anybody can answer.
If you want me to, I'll ask the same question differently. Here's the MBA version of the same question. So the MBA version of the same question is the following. You want to run a campaign, an advertising campaign during IPL. It's going to cost you a lot of money. You're going to go to your CEO and say, sir, let us buy time and let us spend money on IPL. How are you going to convince your boss to do that? Some examples. Exactly. So what the answer is, I'm going to sample, I'm going to do an experiment. And that's the keyword. The MBA question was answered. But accidentally, the education question was also answered. So what is the answer to the education question? You just answered it. Yes, ma'am? Some. So what will you do? What you will do in both of these cases is you'll try out something. You'll have an ad out there. You'll see how many people watch it. You'll do a cost-benefit analysis associated with this. And you'll say, did enough people tune in to watch? And then did they go and buy my product? And then you'll go back to your CEO and say, okay, see, this is the lift you will get in your sales if you run these ads. And you will test this out. You'll say, oh, now if you do this in a big scale, so I spent this much money and I ran so many ads, so I got this many lakhs. If I run a bigger scale, then I get so many crores. But you have to do this in a sensible way because your CEO has to believe you. And how do you make your CEO believe you that this will work? What kind of experiment, what kind of sample will say that this is a convincing answer? This is where your skill in business analytics is going to come. To be able to think through that, to be able to work through that. To say, how will I do this? For example, I may say that I'm going to run this ad in two kinds of situations. Or I'm going to run this ad in one situation, And in another situation, I'm not going to run the ad. And then I'm going to see whether those who saw the ad bought more or gave more data points, more click-through rates, or whatever it is if you want, if it's an online ad. And so you do a careful experiment to say, hey, these people now bought more, these people bought less. And other than that, they're both the same. You'll work through that. This is what statisticians do. They're nerds, but they're good nerds. But this is what they do. Their job is to be able to design that experiment and carry that out, which is what Banerjee and Duflo, etc. did. So what they did is they say, oh, I'm going to take the schools in Haryana, in Uttar Pradesh. As I said, you can't see the numbers very well, but there are lots of them. We're looking at 11,000 students on both sides. We'll see how people who were taught in a certain way. In Haryana, it was looking at whether they're teaching at the right level. In Uttar Pradesh, whether teachers were given right materials, or they were trained in 10-day or 2-day camps. There are control groups in which nothing was done. The traditional way of doing. And then they let this run for years. And then they said at the end of it, did the exam scores change? And how do you know when the exam scores change? Yes, the exam scores change a little bit. They change by 0.2 points. Scale of 0 to 4, Haryana teaching at the right level in language, 0.2. Is that different? Scores went up from 4.1 to 4.3 or something like that. This is where statistics comes in and say, so is the difference significant? Is it useful or is it random? Aisa to hota hai. And that's why people learn statistics. You see that this difference is significant and this difference is not significant. Not because it is a nerdy thing to do, but because if you do it right, you can change your business landscape with a good ad and a good positioning and all of that. I am, for example, why is your lady inviting me? I am the product of a marketing campaign. Right? I am here, right output. Right? Marketing campaign failed. Don't know me. Good, right? So therefore, if you do it well, that's an outcome. More serious outcome. Kids will get taught better. Now, all over India, these experiments are going on. All over the world, these experiments are going on. When these folks, Abhinanda Sarkar and Esther Duflo and others, got the Nobel Prize, economics said, this is not economics. And Abhinanda Sarkar stood up in the Nobel Prize lecture and said, it's not. Deal with it. Because this is how we're going to do things now. The field has been datafied. If you want to know that economic policy works, that education policy works, that public health policy works, the way you do it is you go out and you get data and you convince people that it works. How do we get people to use mosquito nets? Same thing. You use mosquito nets, you don't use mosquito nets. You see what happens. Whatever happens when you don't use mosquito nets. So, but you keep doing this. So my point, before getting to the AI part of this, is essentially to say that the mindset of using data to solve the problem that is in front of you is what is making the difference. And be that through whatever program you wish. Now, the mechanics of this can get complicated with respect to, shall we say, randomizing things and randomly saying these are the people who get one kind of treatment, these are the people who get another kind of treatment, and you can do interventions and all of that. That's the mechanics. A part of this you will learn in your programs, as I said, through things like hypothesis testing, etc., etc. That's a matter of execution, of designing an experiment, and even in your technology courses, what I just described with respect to marketing campaign, challenger test, or even in setting up a website. It's called A/B testing. One website looks like this. It's light, it's nice, and very few widgets, connectivity. Another one, beautifully detailed, wonderful slides. This slide, for example, not a slide I could ever come up with. So thank you very much for doing the PR for these slides. So, but is that the kind of slide that you want? Is that what your website should look like, or is it like the ones I usually make, which are dull and boring? but will pretty much work on any computer. That's called A/B testing. And marketers will know how to do that. So all professions are doing this. So the mechanics of this is what's coming in the course. But today I just wanted to talk about this particular aspect of data and remind you that even in the world of ChatGPT, even in the world of AI, fundamental good long-term uses of data still remain. There are still ways in which you can do month-long marketing campaigns, and you can do year-long. These particular efforts that I was talking about are multi-year efforts. Is still worthwhile. So if you're solving healthcare challenges, if you're solving groundwater challenges, and you're doing it using data, this is going to take years and little experiments. And part of my joys of being able to do this is I get to participate in things like this. And as I said, these are not quick things. Some things are quick things, for example. And so this is what we would call AI to some extent. And from one glance at this, you know exactly what this is. So I'm not going to talk too much about the details on doing this. But what I am going to emphasize is the nature of the problem that is being solved. So what's the problem that's being solved here? The problem that's being solved here is my banana plant good? Do I have healthy bananas? Now, how do you figure out whether your banana is healthy or not? If you don't like bananas, pick your favorite fruit. How are you going to figure that out? What would you do? You're a farmer. You're growing bananas. These bananas can't have pest infestations or anything like that, or any other problem. These are consequences for you. So what would you do? What might be a reasonable thing to do? You're in a semi-urban area, so to speak. When you recommend to a farmer, what would you typically do? What's a common sense answer to this? I know what my answer would be. Can I take one of them and eat it? A stupid answer.
Visual analyzation.
Say again.
Visual analyzation, like visually seeing at a two.
Yes, an engineer would call that non-destructive testing. Which means I don't have to eat the banana to figure out whether something is wrong with it or not. That's one point. So now, plus there's another difference between eating it and seeing it. How many bananas can I eat? And how many bananas can I see? I can see more bananas than I can eat or anyone can eat. Plus, if I see the banana, it's not destructive. It remains a banana. I can still potentially sell it. If I've eaten it, thanks lunch. But no money. And so therefore, the situation becomes that in order to be able to solve the problem of whether I have an infected plant or not, you need large-scale investigation of the plant in a way that doesn't destroy the plant. You can go around and say, why don't you simply investigate? Why don't I walk around and say, it's okay? Will you do that? Is that okay? If I just have a large crop and I just walk around and I say, good or not good? Will that good? Remember my previous slide, I can do a sum. In other words, what I can do is I can walk around and I can look at 20 bananas. Is that okay? Why not? It's natural consuming, right? So to see the entire field is going to take a long time. But if I see just 10 of them, so now sample the bad working. With this out. If you're a statistician, sample is the hero word. If you're an AI person, big data is the hero word. Why? Because essentially you're now saying that I want to be in a situation where I can potentially see the entire world. Therefore, you're in a situation of saying that can I essentially scan all of it or as much of it as I choose to in a way that is cost effective in order for me to be able to identify this. So one of the things that happened is that when this world changed from being, shall we say, the statistics-oriented world to the computing-oriented world or the AI-oriented world, is this issue of saying that we should no longer be sampling. We should be looking at the entirety of the data if we potentially can. And sometimes it's possible. Like in pest infestation plants, you can potentially look at the whole field. Sometimes it's a lot harder, like tracking every school child algorithm. What does that mean? It means that there is space for all these technologies. And it's you are the people who will in some way make the decision as to how do we solve a particular problem. Because even, for example, let's say I do AI and I'm making t-shirts. And he's sitting there and he's seeing he's got a wonderful t-shirt, it's blue in color, and it's got wonderful stripes, and he knows it's very well made, and he can do all the statistics and all the AI in his factory. I'm interested in the t-shirt he's wearing. What am I interested in? I'm interested in the t-shirt I'm wearing. The t-shirt I'm going to wear hasn't even been made. What big data will you show? I need some evidence from your factory floor that whatever processes you make is going to work for my t-shirt that will come in the future. So will a sample work? Will you need to see everything? That's a question. Now the details of this chart you are going to see in due course, and it's going to involve a series of technologies. Dr. 𝗀𝗵𝘂 has implemented technologies of this kind in a variety of areas. Essentially what it involves is you solve the problem by essentially asking the following question. If I look at the banana plant, if it is healthy, what does it look like? If it is not healthy, what does it look like? And I solve this problem not by telling the computer this is what an unhealthy crop looks like, but by simply giving them lots of images of what a diseased crop looks like. And then the computer will come back and say, oh, I don't know what you mean by disease. I'm not a biologist. I don't have PhD in botany. But if you're telling me that this is what a diseased plant looks like, then I'm going to associate that disease with certain things inside this image. It will have these particular kinds of features, those little boxes, etc., corresponding to what are called data labels. So if you are labeling this as disease, then I'm going to believe that this is disease. Once I've understood that, I will then train, I will test, validate, I will test, I will do all kinds of things. I will do reinforcement learning, which is understand the rules better and better. And there are many algorithms that those of you in the AI program will deal with and figure out if now I get a new banana crop and I take a picture of it, you'll say, based on the rules that I've learned, it fits the disease class better versus it fits the healthy class better. Therefore, I'm going to predict this. And you can put some numbers. You can even say, I'm confused. I don't know. And if you can do this in a way that is better than humans, picking up signals that even a human can't possibly pick up, all the better. This kind of technology first came about to something called the tobacco mosaic virus. Mosaic because it changes, it put a pattern on the leaves. And farmers, this was in the US, were saying that, but by the time the leaf gets infected, the crop is gone. Can you tell me what it would look like before I look like it? Computers are really stupid, but they're sharper eyes than you. Their way of looking at pixels is sharper if you tell them what to look for. They don't know what to look for, but once you tell them what to look for, they'll be able to find much smaller details than your eye will be able to pick up. Now, the algorithms that do that, again, you'll see what these algorithms are: convolution neural networks, convolution, subsampling, fully connected, etc. Maybe there's too much unnecessary detail out here. But the point is that for those of you who are in the AI programs, the details of this is going to be of some interest to you. Now, we're at an interesting junction here. When I made this slide, I didn't make the slide, NVIDIA made the slide. But when the slide was made, these were things that were very effectively taught. Now, we are at an interesting point here. I have a suspicion that maybe a year from now, 2 years from now, this will not be taught. This will just be assumed. It will be under the hood. In the same way that multiplying a matrix is now under the hood, taking logarithms is under the hood, fixing a tire is under the hood. So people will say, oh, there is such a thing. Now I need to put new data sets onto it, pre-train GPT, right? Generative, pre-train, transformers, pre-train. I don't care how it was originally trained. That's your job. I don't care how the car was made. I want to drive it. So this kind of stuff will become part of the making of the car. I don't know what the future holds. But you will be part of it. And some of you will learn the details of such algorithms and will thrive on it and will enjoy it and will love the coding and will say, let me tweak the algorithms. Let me understand the features, feature map. What's a feature map? What little part of the image of the banana corresponding to disease? That's a feature. That's a symptom from a human's perspective. From the computer's perspective, it's a feature, not a bug. What I mean is, if they're looking for that feature, they're saying, is it really there? You will love that. For some of you, in all honesty, you won't like it. You see, this is a level of coding that I don't want to be humiliated by. But what I hope you will thrive on is the tweaking of it and the building of other applications of it. Because let's suppose you can solve this problem well. What else can you solve well? You will say bananas are not of interest to me. I'm not in the banana business. So what business are you in? And would solving a problem like this solve a problem for you? Anyone want to volunteer in the industry? Which industry are you in? Sir?
Or retail.
Retail. Right? Still your banana example. but nevertheless, anything else you're in retail, is there any damage? Or you're simply saying not damage, positive side. You're saying the damage people I don't like, positive sales. Are people visiting this aisle? Because if you can identify features in a banana, you can identify features in an aisle of a shop. And a feature in an aisle of a shop is a human. Presumably you will buy. So now you can work through that. If I can solve this problem of identifying specific features of interest in an image, with that core skill, I can now solve different problems. I hope you'll be interested in that. Not necessarily the tech that goes into it, but the ability to use that tech for something else. And this is in some way what AI essentially did. AI moved from being a technology that was about robotics, that was about, Arnold Schwarzenegger threatening that he'll say, I will be back, into something that had nothing really to do with robotics or movement or autonomous agents at all. It had to do with simply being able to find features and patterns and meanings of things and all of that. ChatGPT doesn't know what you are saying. It doesn't understand you in any practical way. But it can find features in what you're asking. And in what you're asking, it can say, oh, this is the feature I'm going to look for in the answers. And it can give that back to you. Let me end with maybe a slightly different dimension to this in terms of closing out the loop on data. This is an airport. Now, an airport, as we all know, is a very complicated place. It's got to do a variety of things. It's got to engage with a variety of constituents like planes, like pilots, like air traffic controllers, like passengers, like baggage handlers, like mechanics, like all of that. A very large number of people are roaming around in a airport. And I mean airport in the large definition of an airport, not just if you go to Bangalore airport today, you see a lounge and you see a plane. There's a lot more that is going on behind it. I'm talking about essentially the aviation industry. So now if you're in the aviation industry, then from a purely practical perspective, from a purely, shall we say, business perspective, what do you want to go well? This is more to the folks who are in the analytics program or the business analytics program. What's your business metric for that? Or is there a business metric for that? What kind of numbers say that an airport is successful? The number of passengers being handled, the number of flights, the number of flights. In fact, passenger miles is what is one particular thing. the number of flights,
Right, it shows different turnaround time.
turnaround time, baggage. All of these are interesting metrics. And they're metrics that are going to impact your top line and your bottom line. You start losing baggages, airlines will not be very interested in utilizing your services. If people are not coming to your airport, if you're too far away, etc., airlines are not going to use it. Customers are not going to use the airport again if it doesn't have the right kinds of features. So now, if you are going to improve this, you are going to have to look at the business metrics associated with it and say, therefore, what do I need to do in order to have a better airport? Now, historically and traditionally, what kind of data would do that? You would have the balance sheet of an airport. Now, I know many of you are not in an MBA kind of setting, but you'd look at income statements, you'd look at things of that sort. But here's where things become interesting. Once you have the ability, like I said in AI, and I recall how I defined AI. I defined AI as the ability to use data to solve certain kinds of problems. And that data for me was an image data, and you're seeing text data for many applications that you're seeing out here. Once you are in that space, now you are in a position to be able to handle all these different kinds of data that an airport makes. By that, what do I mean? I mean, for example, signals from aircraft itself, images from inspected parts, voice records of air traffic controllers, etc. All this becomes data. Data is no longer the kinds of metrics that you just talked about. There's another layer of input that comes into it. And the reason this has become data, why is an image of inspected parts? Why is voice records of air traffic controllers? Why is this data at all? This is what AI has done. Because AI has developed into an industry that is capable of extracting signals from images and text. It has developed the ability to convert images and text and other kinds of signals into numbers that computers can understand, in other words, data. So now, as exhaust, almost as a side benefit, airports now have access to all this kinds of data and can do very interesting things with it. For example, figuring out stress levels, figuring out what parts are taking more time to do this, turnaround time for parts, and you'll be able to say, oh, if these are the features, this is the defect that I have in the part that is causing me the greatest turnaround time problems. And lastly, at least from today's perspective, signals. Now that's an interesting problem, right? Planes, signals coming from planes. Do they come from this Malaysian airline, right? It makes something, they disappear. Still don't know where it is. To me, that seemed amazing. I mean, what happened? Planes can disappear these days. Don't we have any, satellite, all these things are there. Where is the data from this? It just vanishes. Somebody saying they deliberately turned off transponders. They stopped such things. But think about the problem here. You've now got signals from aircrafts. You've got hundreds and thousands of sensors there. You've got supercomputers on the ground, but it's got to go through data pipes. So interesting problems there to say, if I've got thousands of sensors, which are tracking pressure, temperature, all these kinds of things, black boxes, and I have supercomputers on the ground, but I have only so much kbps or whatever on my wireless network from a moving plane. What data should I transfer? And so people will say, oh no, I shouldn't transfer data at all. What should I do? I should put it on the cloud. For pilot, I don't know what put it on the cloud means. Sure, but anyway, but to put it on the cloud would effectively mean that the data is moving around. And so, for example, this then becomes an actual context to say that, is this data in the right place? Is it processed in the right place? Do the right kind of people have access to it? Pilots, whatever they say, is recorded in a black box. Think about it. Imagine that you're in an office. Whatever you say is being recorded. Would you feel comfortable? Yeah, privacy. You wouldn't feel comfortable, but it's a safety measure. But maybe you'll feel comfortable that they say that the only reason you would ever open this black box is if something terrible happened. Otherwise, it is secure. You have to have security around this. The rules of the game have to be clear. This is where security comes in. And if you're moving data around, this is where cybersecurity comes in. And this, you're going to hear a lot more about this from people, a lot more competent than me. But if you don't have that layer, this hugely datafied world that I'm describing through bananas and planes is going to be a lot of trouble. Because then there are going to be issues of who has access to it, who doesn't have, what algorithms can potentially run on it. All of that, not just in terms of privacy, but simply in terms of having a playing field within which this technology can be developed. And you'll see examples of that. So that world is emerging. This slide, again, like everything I'm telling you, is not mine. This particular thing is from Gartner, and you can read it. And I just wanted to leave you with an overall picture of where some of this might be going. You'll see more details around this. So the words that Gartner are talking about from a trends futuristic perspective are optimize, scale, and pioneer. Optimize means drill deep into it, understand details of all business operations, do it a lot more effectively. And by effective, I mean all aspects. So for example, there's a term they call AI PRISM. PRISM stands for trust, risk, security management, which is what I was talking about. All this is good, but make sure that the restrictions around it are well placed. Scale, things like cloud, things like saying that there's a potential for putting data in large volumes in places like this. These very interesting engineering problems. Many years ago, about over 30 years ago now, the inventor of Cray, which was a supercomputer at that point in time, came to Stanford and he gave a talk. And students came and said, we're going to learn about the basics of supercomputers. He didn't talk about computers at all. He talked about plumbing. Because he said that my major restriction is that my computer is getting too hot. I can compute, but I have a mechanical restriction. So he talked about fluid flows and plumbing and things like that. People today are talking in clouds about infrastructure, about cooling things down, and about various kinds of other technologies associated with getting to do this. New apps, adaptive AI, metaverse is some cool very now, but generative AI, for example, all the things that are happening, all the new apps that you're going to be able to build. Some of you are going to think naturally in terms of discovering things, inventing things, enabling business model changes. Your passion will be in finding new ways to solve a problem. Some of you will be in scale. Your passion will be in growing something. I know how it's done, but can I do it much more expansive? Can I grow things? Can I expand things? You're not inventors, but you are people who can take an idea, deploy it, run it, grow it. And some of you would be in optimizing. You are interested in saying that whatever we do, let's do it well. And let me dig deep down. In a football team, you would be defenders. Make sure your team doesn't get goals scored against you. Forwards win matches, defenders win tournaments. So you optimize it. And so you will have different mindsets. And those mindsets will lead you to different directions of this world. You're going to hear different versions of this from speakers today, and much more importantly, in your programs. In a very literal sense, the world is your oyster, in the sense that nobody quite knows what's inside the oyster. You have to open it and find out what will happen, what you will see when you open the oyster. I don't particularly know. But you are the privileged time, because AI, particularly AI, is shifting as we speak. One of my jobs in great learning is to be able to sort of define new programs, create new programs, and all of that. And I am thoroughly confused. Kuch bhi nahi. Should I teach all the old stuff? Should I not teach all the stuff? Is it relevant? Is it not relevant? How do we do this? So you are at a wonderful junction point. If you do this well, you will be the pioneers of being able to create, optimize, scale, and pioneer the next generation of things in ways that I can't imagine. Because as I said, the definition of the field is changing. For those of you who are in the other programs, in the business analytics programs, as I just described, not just in business, but in society, in governance, in healthcare, in agriculture, in all of these areas, there are large applications where what you learn is of considerable importance. Yes, by all means, make money. Very crucial, especially in malls and fast food places. But you have the skills to solve a larger range of problems as well. And for those of you who are in security and cybersecurity, as I said, we're going to rely on you in order to keep people safe. I have a 10-year-old daughter, right? My wife is asking, how am I going to give her a cell phone? You see the problem, right? For those of you who have kids, solve that problem. Just an example, but but you're there. Welcome again. Thank you. I'm not sure. I probably overshot time as usual. But if there's time for questions, if there isn't, we'll move on.